The spring sunlight filtered through the tall oaks of Oak Ridge Community Park, casting dappled patterns across the soft green grass. Children's laughter rang through the air, mingling with the chirping of birds perched high above and the distant hum of a merry-go-round spinning in rhythm with the warm breeze. It was one of those perfect spring mornings where time seemed to slow, inviting families to linger a little longer, to savor the fleeting days before summer's heat arrived in earnest. 7-year-old Lily Chen darted across the playground, her small legs pumping with uncontainable energy, her dark pigtails bouncing like pendulums in sync with her excitement. At her side, a large German shepherd moved with a grace that belied his size. Ranger, once a decorated police K-9 and now a retired hero, trotted faithfully, matching her pace with effortless precision. His sable coat gleamed in the sunlight, highlighting the powerful muscles that rippled beneath his fur with each stride. Unlike the occasional pets that wandered the park with their owners, Ranger didn't run aimlessly or chase without purpose. Every movement was intentional, every step measured, yet infused with a playful lightness reserved for the bond he shared with Lily. "Catch it, Ranger," Lily shouted, her small hand propelling a worn tennis ball high into the air. Her voice carried across the playground, buoyant and bright, echoing off the swings and climbing frames. Ranger's ears perked slightly, his eyes locking on the ball mid-flight. With a fluid bound that seemed to momentarily defy gravity, he leapt, catching the ball cleanly in his jaws, before landing silently, his tail wagging in proud acknowledgement of his own skill. Lily clapped her hands and squealed with delight, her laughter ringing like a tiny bell in the warm spring air. "I saw that. Did you see how high you jumped, Ranger?" she called, eyes shining with pride. Her small voice carried a mixture of amazement and joy, the kind only a child could summon at the effortless athleticism of a beloved companion. Ranger trotted back to her, the ball still clutched firmly in his mouth, head held high as if carrying a tiny, invisible trophy just for her. He dropped the ball at her feet with careful precision, nudging it closer with his nose before sitting obediently, his gaze steady and attentive. Lily bent down, fingers brushing the soft fur along his muzzle, and whispered, "You're the best dog in the whole world." From a nearby bench, Lily's mother, Rebecca Chen, looked up from her book, a soft smile tugging at her lips. She had watched this morning ritual countless times over the past 18 months, yet each instant still brought a subtle swell of warmth to her chest. What had begun as a temporary fostering arrangement for a retired police dog had evolved into something permanent, something extraordinary. Ranger had seamlessly become part of their little family, a silent guardian and constant companion for Lily. Rebecca's eyes lingered on the duo as Ranger's ears twitched again, subtle movements almost imperceptible to an untrained observer. His head tilted slightly, nostrils flaring ever so faintly as he sniffed the air, picking up scents that humans could never detect. Twice already in the past few minutes, he had paused their game, scanning the perimeter of the playground with the practiced vigilance of a K-9 who had spent years protecting people, lives, and sometimes the very thin line between order and chaos. He remained poised, every muscle coiled and relaxed in the same breath, a living testament to both discipline and love. Lily, completely unaware of the silent signals Ranger was sending, continued to bounce on her heels, tossing the ball just a little higher each time. Her giggles carried across the playground, mingling with the shrill cries of other children, swinging from the monkey bars and the delighted squeals of toddlers racing down the slides. She didn't notice Ranger's brief pause, the flick of his ears toward the cluster of trees near the park entrance, nor the slight shift in his stance as he subtly positioned himself closer to her with each toss. To Lily, this was just another game of fetch. To Ranger, every motion, every glance, every barkless observation was part of his silent watch. The park seemed alive with motion, every element contributing to the symphony of a carefree spring morning. A light breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, the sharp tang of freshly cut grass, and the faint aroma of popcorn and ice cream from a nearby stand. Ranger moved through it all with a composure that belied the fierce loyalty coursing through his veins. Each stride was a careful calculation, a rhythm learned from years on the streets, yet tempered by the softness reserved for Lily. When she ran, he ran. When she stopped, he stopped, always matching her pace, always maintaining a protective orbit around her small body. Lily paused for a moment, her small chest heaving with exertion, and looked down at Ranger, her eyes wide with admiration. "You're amazing, Ranger. I bet no one else can jump like you," she exclaimed, her fingers reaching up to ruffle the fur behind his ears. Ranger leaned into her touch, tail wagging more vigorously, eyes softening, but ever alert. In that moment, the innocence of a child's joy intersected perfectly with the disciplined intensity of a retired police dog, a bond forged not only through shared play, but through trust, love, and unspoken understanding. The sun climbed higher, warming Lily's cheeks and casting a golden glow across the playground, highlighting Ranger's glossy coat and the tender expressions exchanged between child and dog. In that simple game of fetch, in the laughter and the light, there was an invisible thread of security woven between them. Ranger's subtle alertness, his scanning of the perimeter, his careful positioning, went unnoticed by Lily, but it was there, a quiet promise that no harm would come to her while he remained at her side. And so the morning passed in a swirl of motion and joy. Ball after ball, jump after jump, bark after delighted squeal, Lily and Ranger continued their dance across the playground. To an onlooker, it might have seemed like nothing more than a child and her dog at play, but beneath the surface, the connection was deeper, more profound. Ranger's loyalty and vigilance, tempered by the gentle, protective affection he had learned to reserve for his little charge, created a sense of safety and freedom for Lily that allowed her to laugh without care, to run without fear, to simply exist in the sunlight and warmth of a perfect spring morning. Every toss of the ball, every waze of the tail, every attentive glance from Ranger was a testament to the unbreakable bond they shared. And even as Lily called for him to fetch the ball once more, completely absorbed in her world of play, Ranger's ears twitched again, ever alert, ever ready, silently promising that no matter what the world might hold beyond the bright, cheerful park, he would be there, a guardian, a friend, and a hero, all wrapped up in one magnificent, faithful body. In that innocence and joy, that unspoken trust, the first seeds of a story were planted, a story of courage, love, and devotion, waiting to unfold in the ways that would touch hearts far beyond the boundaries of Oak Ridge Community Park. The warmth of the morning continued to drape Oak Ridge Community Park in golden light, the sounds of laughter and playful shouts still mingling with the rustling of leaves overhead. Lily Chen, cheeks flushed with delight, chased Ranger across the soft grass, oblivious to the world beyond her game. But beneath the carefree atmosphere, a subtle shift began, a movement too quiet for most to notice, yet impossible for Ranger to ignore. Across the park, partially shaded by a towering oak, a man lingered. At first glance, he seemed ordinary, mid-30s, wearing jeans and a light jacket, a blue baseball cap pulled low over his brow. His hands were idle, occasionally adjusting his phone or brushing back a stray lock of hair, but the precision of his movements, the lingering gaze toward the playground, spoke of something deliberate, something calculated. For anyone else, his presence might have seemed harmless, blending easily into the background of the busy morning, but Ranger's trained eyes detected the irregularities immediately. The German shepherd's body tensed imperceptibly, muscles coiling beneath his sleek coat. His ears flicked forward in rapid, subtle movements. picking up sounds that humans couldn't perceive, the faint shuffle of shoes against mulch, the soft exhale of someone holding their breath, the distant scrape of metal as the man's fingers brushed against the pocket of his jacket. His nostrils flared, inhaling scents layered with anxiety, deception, and something darker, something that didn't belong in the sunny park. Ranger shifted closer to Lily, not abruptly, not in a way that would alarm her, but enough to position himself as a living shield. The ball they had been tossing lay forgotten at her feet. He sat slightly angled between her and the stranger, his head low, gaze unwavering. Every muscle in his body was alert, every sense attuned to potential danger. To Lily, it was just a small shift in position, almost instinctual, something she might not have consciously registered. But to anyone who understood, it was a protective stance born of decades of training and experience. Lily's laughter continued, pure and unaware, as she raced toward the slide. "Ranger, wait!" she called, but the dog didn't follow immediately. Instead, he paused, scanning the park, nostrils flaring slightly, ears pivoting toward the subtle signs of intrusion. His dark eyes flicked toward the figure at the edge of the playground. The man's movements were casual but deliberate, each step measured as he inched closer to the swings where Lily would inevitably go. Rebecca Chen, seated on a nearby bench, was momentarily absorbed in her phone, responding to an urgent work message. Her gaze occasionally lifted to watch Lily, noting with a smile how Ranger's tail wagged proudly each time the ball arced through the air. She didn't see the shift in his posture, the barely perceptible narrowing of his eyes, the subtle coiling of his powerful frame. She couldn't sense what Ranger couldn't detect the anomaly in the flow of the park's usual rhythm. Time seemed to slow in Ranger's perception. Every detail became magnified. The man's glances toward Lily, the way his shoulders tensed, the brief tightening of his grip around the strap of an invisible bag. Ranger's training kicked in automatically, a silent command he had learned years ago, in far more dangerous settings than a sunny playground. He didn't bark, he didn't growl, but the tension radiating from his body was palpable, a warning, quiet but resolute, a signal to the world that he was watching, waiting, ready. Lily, blissfully unaware of the danger inching closer, spun toward the swings, pumping her small legs with all the joy her 7-year-old body could muster. "Higher, Ranger! Watch me!" she shouted. She leapt slightly, arms extended, the wind catching in her pigtails. Ranger moved alongside her, matching her motion fluidly, yet always positioned between her and the stranger. It was a subtle dance, almost invisible to the human eye, but a display of instinct, loyalty, and unwavering vigilance. The man adjusted his baseball cap, eyes narrowing as he studied Lily and the dog. His movements were deliberate, slow, predatory, designed to appear casual while inching ever closer to his target. He smiled faintly, an expression that didn't reach his eyes, and took a measured step forward. Ranger's ears flicked again, nostrils flaring, tail lowering just slightly, signaling the first clear sign of alertness. He didn't need to see the threat to understand it. Every sense told him the same story. For a moment there was only the play of light and shadow, the gentle murmur of the wind, and the faint rustle of leaves. Lily reached for the ball Ranger had returned, giggling, completely unaware of the silent tension building behind her. Ranger's eyes never left the stranger. He shifted his weight slightly, a barely perceptible nudge closer to Lily, ensuring that between her small body and the approaching figure there was an unbroken line of protection. Rebecca's phone buzzed again, drawing her attention, and she looked up just in time to see the man's silhouette shift closer to the swings. Her eyes flicked between him and Lily, sensing something vaguely off, but unable to place it. Ranger's subtle movements, the low hunch of his shoulders, the slight forward lean of his powerful frame, these were signals she didn't fully understand yet. But instinctively her hand twitched toward the small emergency whistle she always carried in her pocket, a relic of caution she had learned to maintain since moving into the neighborhood. The emotional weight of the moment was quiet but profound. Lily's innocence, her pure joy and trust in Ranger, was juxtaposed against the unseen danger lurking just beyond her world of play. Ranger, with every muscle attuned and senses heightened, embodied both the bond of love and the rigor of protection. In his stillness, in his unwavering attention, he became more than a pet. He became a silent sentinel, a guardian of a child's fleeting sense of safety, a living shield against the potential horrors beyond the playground's cheerful veneer. Then, as Lily swung higher, Ranger made a subtle, fluid adjustment. He positioned himself fully between her and the stranger, a silent declaration of his intent. "I am here. Nothing will reach her while I am near." His gaze locked on the man, unblinking, unyielding, every hair along his back raised just slightly, his body radiating controlled power. To anyone watching without context, it might have seemed like a dog merely playing at vigilance. To those who knew, it was the first climax of a story unfolding, the quiet, emotionally charged moment where a child's safety rested entirely in the instincts and training of a loyal guardian. Lily, sensing the shift even without understanding it, tilted her head and whispered, "Ranger, what's wrong?" Her voice carried the innocence of curiosity rather than fear, a reminder of why he fought to protect her. Ranger's ears twitched, his gaze unwavering, and he nudged her gently with his nose, guiding her slightly away from the path the stranger had begun to trace. And in that silent act, the subtle, deliberate positioning between Lily and the approaching figure, Ranger transformed the ordinary morning into a tableau of trust, vigilance, and raw emotional resonance. The playground, still filled with laughter and sunlight, now held the quiet tension of potential danger, softened only by the presence of a dog whose loyalty and love transcended the boundaries of ordinary companionship. It was a guardian moment, powerful not in noise or spectacle, but in precision, dedication, and the invisible, unspoken promise that no harm would reach the small girl at his side. And as the stranger paused, his intent still unclear to most, Ranger remained steadfast, a silent sentinel ensuring that Lily's innocence and freedom of play would continue, at least for now, unthreatened. The memory unfolded in Ranger's mind like a vivid, storm-tossed dream, one that time had never dulled. He was younger then, leaner, muscles coiled like springs, every sense tuned to danger, every instinct sharpened by years of training. His black and tan coat gleamed even under the harsh fluorescent lights of the police precinct, and the weight of his canine vest was both armor and badge, a symbol of duty, loyalty, and courage. It had been a late autumn night, the kind when fog rolls in low over the city streets, muffling sounds and shrouding everything in ghostly gray. Officer Rivera had trusted Ranger implicitly, as he always had. Together they prowled the alleys and abandoned warehouses that crime had claimed as its own, but nothing had prepared them for the call that night. A tip about a high-stakes drug operation operating out of a seemingly empty warehouse at the edge of town. As they approached, the tension was palpable. Ranger's ears twitched at every distant echo of footsteps, every creak of the wind-swept metal doors. He felt the anxiety in Rivera's grip on his leash, the quiet steadiness that masked a surge of adrenaline. Then the command came, silent but resolute. They moved forward, shadows among shadows, a unit ready to confront danger head-on. The raid erupted like a storm. Flashing lights shouted commands, the acrid scent of gunpowder and fear. Ranger lunged, teeth bared, body coiled for action. And then came the shots, rapid, unrelenting, bullets tearing through the chaos. Ranger was hit twice, each impact a searing pain that stole his breath, but never his focus. He staggered, but the sight of his handler and team in jeopardy drove him forward. Each step was agony, but each step carried him closer to those who depended on him. He attacked with precision, instinct guiding every move, dodging, striking, hurting, protecting. The drug traffickers didn't anticipate the ferocity of a dog who had trained in fear and discipline, a dog who lived for service. Ranger's jaws clamped on a man attempting to flee, holding him just long enough for Officer Rivera to secure the arrest. The pain in his side was blinding, yet Ranger did not falter, his eyes, dark and unwavering, locked on Rivera, silently communicating, "I've got you. I won't let anything happen." When the last suspect was subdued, the chaos gave way to stunned silence, broken only by the groans of those injured in the skirmish. Ranger collapsed onto the cold concrete, every muscle screaming, blood dark and slick against his fur. Rivera was at his side instantly, cradling him with the same mixture of relief and terror that only a handler could feel. "Hold on, buddy," he whispered, voice trembling, his hands pressed against Ranger's wounds, trying desperately to stem the bleeding. "You're gonna be okay. You're gonna make it. You hear me?" The scene shifted to the hospital, a sterile room bathed in a harsh white light that contrasted sharply with the vivid danger of the warehouse. Ranger lay on a narrow bed, bandages wrapped tightly around his wounds. Machines beeped rhythmically, monitoring every vital sign. Rivera sat beside him, exhaustion etched into his features, his uniform wrinkled and blood-stained. He gently stroked Ranger's head, tears tracking down his cheeks, dampening the dog's fur. "You saved us all," he murmured. "Do you know how proud I am of you?" Ranger's breathing was labored, each inhale a struggle, yet his dark eyes held the same unwavering loyalty that had driven him through the raid. He shifted slightly, nuzzling Rivera's hand, a small gesture that carried volumes, courage, love, and the bond forged in the heat of life and death moments. The room felt heavy with emotion, the quiet hum of hospital equipment underscoring the gravity of his sacrifice. Visceral memories of that night flashed in Ranger's mind, the deafening roar of gunfire, the acrid sting of smoke, the adrenaline surge that made every movement feel both instinctive and miraculous. He remembered the faces of his team, the fear in their eyes, and the way they had looked at him, not just as a dog, but as a hero, a living guardian who had risked everything, without hesitation. Tears welled in Rivera's eyes as he recounted the incident for the medical staff, his voice thick with emotion. "This dog, he ran straight into the fire, twice hit and still holding the line. He didn't think about himself. He only thought about protecting us." Ranger's tail twitched faintly, a small, almost imperceptible acknowledgement of the praise and gratitude showered upon him. Despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, he had fulfilled his duty to the end. The emotional weight of that night lingered in Ranger's memory, a mixture of pride and pain and unshakable loyalty. It wasn't just about the physical scars or the danger faced. It was about the bond, the trust, the understanding that he and Saman, his handler, shared. Every chase, every command, every moment in that warehouse had forged a connection stronger than any spoken word could convey. It was a bond rooted in courage, in sacrifice, and in a mutual understanding that life was fragile, yet worth protecting at any cost. And now, years later, as Ranger trotted beside Lily in the warm sunlight of Oak Ridge Community Park, the echoes of that night shaped every instinct, every movement. His loyalty had not faded, it had merely evolved. The same courage that had driven him through gunfire and danger now guided him in subtler ways, protecting a small girl with the same unwavering determination. The stakes were different, the threats quieter, but the essence of his heroism remained unchanged. Ranger's past was a tapestry of scars, bravery, and devotion. The memory of that night, of the pain endured and the lives saved, was etched into his very being. It was a story of courage and sacrifice that would never fade, a testament to the enduring bond between a dog and those he loved. And in that bond lay the quiet, unspoken promise that no matter the danger, seen or unseen, he would always stand between innocence and harm, just as he had in the chaos of his police days. The transition from life on the streets to life in a quiet home was anything but smooth for Ranger. The once routine rush of patrols, sirens, and sudden threats was replaced by silence, an unfamiliar kind of stillness that unsettled him more than any danger he had ever faced. Rebecca Chen had welcomed him with open arms, her heart full of hope for the retired police dog. But even her warmth could not erase the tension etched into every muscle of his body. At first, Ranger roamed the house like a sentinel guarding a fortress. His paws clicked against the wooden floor, echoing in the quiet rooms as he circled, sniffed the corners, and checked every window and door. The patterns were almost ritualistic, the careful pacing a vestige of years spent ensuring nothing could threaten his team or his handler. He would stop abruptly, ears twitching, eyes scanning for sounds imperceptible to humans. The smallest creak of a floorboard, the faint rustle of leaves outside, the distant bark of another dog, everything registered as potential danger. Rebecca watched with a mixture of fascination and concern. She understood the discipline instilled in him, the high-drive instincts that could never fully be turned off. But she also knew that Lily, her 6-year-old daughter, needed a companion, not a shadow of a soldier. "It's okay, Ranger," she whispered one evening as he paused mid-stride, muscles tensed, eyes fixed on the darkened hallway. "This is your home now, you're safe." Ranger's eyes softened slightly, but only for a moment. His body relaxed enough to settle on the floor, though his ears remained alert, pivoting toward every minor sound. He watched Rebecca and Lily interact from a distance, observing their laughter, the warmth between mother and daughter, and something unfamiliar stirred in him. Curiosity, maybe even the first trace of contentment outside duty. The first weeks were challenging. Meal times were disrupted by Ranger's constant vigilance. Walks around the neighborhood were tense as he reacted to every passerby, every dog, every moving car with an intensity that left Rebecca exhausted and Lily nervous. But slowly, tiny moments began to emerge. A wag of the tail as Lily held out a treat. A soft nuzzle against her hand as she whispered to him. The bridge between soldier and family pet, though fragile, began to form. Then came the thunderstorm, a night that would forever mark the deepening bond between Lily and her guardian. The wind howled against the windows, rain lashed the roof, and every distant rumble of thunder seemed amplified, shaking the very walls of their small house. Lily, terrified of storms, had hidden in her closet, clutching her blanket and trembling. Her little body shook with fear, and her soft sobs echoed through the room, heart-wrenching in their innocence. Ranger had sensed her distress immediately. He didn't wait for a command or reassurance. He knew instinctively that his role had shifted from protector of strangers to protector of family. He approached the closet with quiet, deliberate steps, each one measured and controlled. His dark eyes scanned the hallway, ears flicking back toward the door as he assessed the environment. Every sense alert for any hidden threat, real or imagined. Inside the closet, Lily peeked through the small gap in the door, her wide eyes filling with fear at the flashes of lightning illuminating the room. But when Ranger appeared, curling protectively around her, something shifted. His massive frame formed a living barrier between her and the world outside. His nose pressed gently against her shoulder, a silent promise of safety, while his eyes, dark and steady, communicated an unspoken understanding. "You are not alone. I am here." Lily buried her small hands into his thick fur, clinging as though it were a lifeline, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a measure of calm. The storm outside raged on, but within that tiny closet, the chaos of the world faded. Ranger's breathing was steady, controlled, a rhythm that mirrored the heartbeat of someone who had faced danger countless times but never kippered in loyalty. Rebecca, standing in the doorway, watched the scene unfold and felt tears prick at her eyes. She had known Ranger was special, But witnessing the depth of his devotion, his willingness to place himself between her daughter and fear itself, was something that transcended any training manual or heroic tale she had ever heard. It was pure, instinctive, and infinitely moving. That night, after the storm had passed, and Lily had finally fallen asleep against Ranger's side, the dog remained alert, his body still a shield, even in the quiet hours. Rebecca watched from her bed, heart full, recognizing the extraordinary nature of the bond that had formed. Ranger was no longer just a retired police dog or a temporary foster pet. He was family. Protector, confidant, and silent guardian, he had found a new purpose, one that required courage of a different kind, the courage to love and be loved in return. In the weeks that followed, the home slowly adjusted to his presence. Ranger still performed perimeter checks, still reacted to sudden noises, and still observed the world with a careful, practiced vigilance. But there were moments now when he allowed himself to relax, to play with Lily in the garden, to chase balls across the yard, or to nap beside her as she read aloud stories. The thunderstorm had forged trust. The daily routine solidified it. The bond between Lily and Ranger was no longer just about protection. It was about understanding, mutual respect, and an almost spiritual connection that transcended words. Every laugh, every playful bark, every quiet moment of comfort reinforced the notion that he was not just guarding her physically but emotionally as well. Lily's trust in him was complete, and in turn, Ranger's loyalty had evolved into something deeper, something that could not be quantified by training hours or commendations. And as Rebecca watched her daughter giggle, hair tousled and eyes bright, with Ranger trotting faithfully at her side, she understood that this bond, tempered by storms, forged through fear, and solidified by unwavering protection, was unbreakable. The lessons of police duty, courage, and sacrifice had not been lost on him. They had simply found a new canvas upon which to be expressed, the safe, sunlit world of a child who had captured his heart. The sunlight was softer that afternoon, filtering through the branches of Oak Ridge Community Park, casting dappled patterns across the walking paths. Children ran and laughed, their voices blending into a symphony of carefree joy. But Ranger's ears twitched. His dark eyes scanned every movement, every figure, every slight anomaly in the familiar rhythm of the park. Across the playground near the ice cream cart, a man lingered. At first glance, he seemed ordinary. Mid-30s, casually dressed in a navy hoodie and jeans, holding a small cash wallet as if waiting for his turn to order. Yet Ranger's instincts told him something was off. His posture stiffened, muscles taut beneath his fur. He lowered his body slightly, tail brushing the ground in a slow, deliberate wag, a silent signal of readiness, of alert. Lily, blissfully unaware, skipped ahead of her mother toward the swings. In her hand, she held Ranger's favorite tennis ball, occasionally tossing it lightly so the dog could retrieve it. Her giggles were bright and pure, each one cutting through the tension Ranger felt. She had no concept of the danger that lingered nearby, no sense of the predator observing her with measured intent. The man made a small move, stepping closer to the playground, his eyes tracking Lily as she twirled with the swing's momentum. He reached into a small cooler beside the ice cream cart, retrieving 2 cones. One he handed to a nearby child with a friendly smile. The other he kept hidden in his palm for a moment, glancing in Lily's direction. His voice, smooth and soft, called out casually, "Hey there, sweetheart, want some ice cream?" Ranger's ears flicked backward, the hairs along his spine bristling. He shifted silently, positioning himself closer to Lily, his massive frame moving without drawing attention. His keen eyes never left the man, noting every twitch of his fingers, the subtle stiffness in his shoulders, the unnatural pause before he called to the girl. Ranger understood the unspoken language of threat, a language Lily could never decipher. Lily, innocent and trusting, hesitated for just a moment. The cone looked sweet, the colors vibrant against the warm afternoon light. "Mom, can I have some?" she called, her voice filled with excitement. Her mother, Rebecca, was momentarily distracted, her phone pressed to her ear as she answered a quick work call. She nodded distractedly, unaware of the exchange taking place just feet away. The man took a careful step closer, offering the ice cream with a practiced smile. "It's okay, sweetie. Just come get it." He extended the cone slightly, his hand steady but deliberate, an effort to lure, to manipulate. Every movement was calculated, measured like a predator testing the waters. Ranger's body tensed, a silent barrier forming between Lily and the approaching danger. He lowered his head, ears forward, eyes locked on the man. The muscles in his shoulders rippled as he shifted his stance, creating an invisible wall, a warning that went beyond growls or barks. To anyone else, he was just a dog standing beside a little girl. To those who understood the unspoken language of protection, he was a sentinel, unwavering and watchful. Lily tilted her head, confusion flickering across her face. "Why won't he give it to me?" she whispered, not understanding the tension that had seeped into the air. Her small hand instinctively reached for Ranger's thick fur, seeking reassurance. Ranger leaned slightly into her touch, a subtle signal that she was safe, but his eyes never wavered from the man's. The stranger noticed Ranger's presence and froze for just a fraction of a second, his eyes narrowing, assessing the dog's reaction. He adjusted the cone, angling it to appear more enticing, yet the hesitation in his posture betrayed him. Ranger's mind, honed by years of police service, read every micro-movement. The subtle shift in weight, the careful positioning of feet, the attempt to control Lily with kindness, while hiding something sinister beneath the veneer. From behind, Rebecca's voice carried softly. Her words clipped into the phone call. She didn't notice Ranger's low rumble, barely audible but laden with tension, vibrating through the warm air of the park. Only Lily seemed to sense something, instinctively clutching Ranger's neck, feeling the rigid strength beneath her fingers. The moment stretched. Ranger's eyes narrowed, tail stiff, muscles coiled like springs. The man's hand hovered over the cone, seconds away from handing it to Lily. The dog's nostrils flared slightly, picking up subtle scents, the faint tang of cologne, the trace of anxiety, the hidden hint of malice. He understood instinctively that the danger was near, that the predator sought an opportunity, and that the barrier he formed was the only thing keeping Lily safe in that instant. Then, almost imperceptibly, Ranger shifted again. He stepped slightly forward, positioning himself so that the man's path to Lily was partially blocked. The movement was subtle, quiet, but loaded with authority. It was a declaration. The child was under his protection, and any further approach would not go unnoticed. Lily's wide eyes met Ranger's, and she clutched his fur tightly. The silent communication between them was instantaneous. She felt the strength, the vigilance, the unspoken warning, and the terror of the unseen threat didn't fully reach her, but she sensed something was wrong. Her small heart pounded, but Ranger's presence was steady, grounding her in safety. The stranger's expression flickered, a microsecond of frustration, then forced composure. He adjusted the cone again, his movement slower now, more careful, and finally decided to retreat, muttering under his breath as he moved toward the ice cream cart. Ranger's muscles relaxed slightly but remained ready, tail wagging stiffly, body poised. Rebecca ended her phone call and turned toward Lily. "Everything okay?" she asked, smiling absent-mindedly, unaware of the danger that had just passed inches from her daughter. Lily nodded, still gripping Ranger's fur, feeling the reassuring presence beneath her small fingers. Ranger exhaled softly, a subtle release of tension. His eyes softened just slightly as he returned focus to Lily, nudging her gently with his nose, a reminder that she was safe and loved. Yet beneath that gentle exterior, his instincts remained sharp, ever ready. a silent promise that no harm would reach the girl while he was near. The afternoon continued, but the unspoken tension lingered like a shadow. Ranger patrolled slowly beside Lily, scanning every face, every movement, every sound, all while maintaining the illusion of calm. Lily laughed again, tossing the tennis ball. But Ranger's eyes never wavered. Every muscle, every sinew, every twitch of his ear was a testament to the bond formed in trust and loyalty, a bond that had already saved her without a single word spoken. It was a quiet but emotionally charged moment, the calm before potential chaos, a silent alarm that gripped anyone paying attention. Ranger's protective presence was more than instinct. It was love, loyalty, and the culmination of years of service, now repurposed to guard the most precious treasure in his world, Lily. The warmth of the afternoon sun carried the usual comforting hum of Oak Ridge Community Park. But beneath the laughter and rustling leaves, tension coiled like a hidden snake. Ranger's eyes never left the man who had lingered near the playground earlier. Something about the stranger's movements now held a sharper edge, a quiet insistence that sent a shiver down the dog's spine. Lily, holding her little hands together, watched Ranger intently. "Why is he staring at us, Ranger?" she whispered, tilting her head, the innocence of her 7-year-old mind unable to comprehend the brewing danger. The dog's low rumble vibrated through the air, barely audible but filled with a warning so primal that Lily felt it instinctively. She stepped closer to him, trusting in the protection he offered, wrapping her tiny fingers around his fur. The stranger took a deliberate step forward, his smile polite, but the underlying intent sharp and predatory. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small toy, waving it enticingly. "Hey there, sweet girl," he called softly, attempting to lure her closer. "Come on, it's just for you." His voice was gentle, almost soothing, but Ranger's ears flicked back, reading the deception with clarity. Ranger shifted, positioning himself directly between Lily and the man, his massive frame a barrier built of muscle and instinct. He lowered his head, eyes locked on the stranger, tail stiff, body coiled like a spring. A low, rumbling growl emanated from deep in his chest, not aggressive without cause, but a clear declaration. Any misstep, any attempt to cross this line would meet resistance. The stranger's eyes flickered, registering the dog's unwavering stance. He attempted a casual step to the side, trying to reach Lily from another angle, but Ranger's body followed fluidly, subtle yet assertive. Every movement the man made was being silently catalogued, measured against Ranger's instincts, honed in years of police service. The dog was both shield and sentinel, a living alarm that demanded attention without a single bark. Nearby, other parents noticed the shift in atmosphere. Whispers rippled through the playground. Heads turned, some with curiosity, others with unease. A mother adjusted her child's sun hat. A man on a bench picked up his phone, glancing nervously at the unfolding scene. No one yet understood the full depth of the threat, but tension had unmistakably seeped into the park's once tranquil air. Lily, still clutching Ranger's fur, sensed the rising stakes. Her small hands gripped him tightly, her heartbeat quickening. But within that fear was pride. Pride in her steadfast friend and protector. Pride in knowing that no matter what, Ranger would not let her down. "It's okay, Ranger," she murmured softly, leaning into him, her trust absolute. The bond between them shone in that tiny exchange, a silent testament to loyalty, love, and reliance that transcended words. The stranger's patience waned. He straightened, shoulders stiffening as he attempted another approach, more direct this time. His voice sharpened just enough to pierce the ambient noise of the playground. "Come on now, sweetie, don't be shy." The ice cream cone he held, once an innocent lure, now seemed almost sinister in its intent, a symbol of manipulation and control. Ranger's low rumble grew louder, resonating through his chest, vibrating into Lily's small hands wrapped in his fur. His stance was immovable, legs braced, shoulders squared, body a perfect line of defiance. Then, as the man lunged, a sudden, aggressive motion meant to intimidate and force Lily forward. Ranger responded without hesitation. In one seamless, fluid motion, Ranger shifted his body, intercepting the stranger's path. His head lowered slightly, ears forward, teeth barely visible but enough to signal seriousness. The man's lunge was met not with violence, but with the immovable wall of loyalty and instinct that Ranger represented. The dog's sheer presence, the physical manifestation of courage and protection, halted the man mid-step. Parents gasped collectively, some instinctively stepping back, realizing that the situation was far more than a casual playground interaction. Rebecca's voice cracked as she called out, "Lily, behind me!" But Lily didn't move. She didn't need to. Ranger's unwavering posture and silent command kept her rooted and safe, every fiber of his being communicating, "I've got you." For a split-second, time seemed suspended. The predator, confronted with a barrier he had not anticipated, faltered. His calculated composure slipped, replaced by subtle panic and frustration. Ranger's eyes, dark and unyielding, held him at bay. The energy of the scene, taut, electric, and emotionally charged, saturated the air around them. Every bystander felt it, every child's laughter stilled, every adult holding their breath as the invisible tension stretched taut across the park. Lily, sensing Ranger's resolve, pressed closer. She whispered, "You're so brave, Ranger," her voice small but filled with awe. The trust she placed in him in that moment was total, and her reliance made Ranger's protective instincts even more fierce. The bond that had been forged in the aftermath of thunderstorm nights and lonely walks had crystallized here in the public arena under threat of real danger. The stranger stepped back, reassessing, hands raised slightly in an attempt at casual retreat. Ranger maintained his position, a living sentinel that would not yield. Rebecca reached Lily, scooping her into her arms, hugging her tightly. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, eyes darting nervously to the man, who now began to retreat toward the edge of the park, watching, calculating, perhaps waiting for another chance. Ranger exhaled softly, a subtle relaxation that only Lily could feel. His eyes softened, glancing down at her before scanning the park again, ensuring no other threat remained. Every muscle in his body relaxed, but the vigilance lingered just beneath the surface. The afternoon sun continued to cast dappled light across the playground, but the invisible mark of danger had been etched into everyone's awareness. And for Lily, for Rebecca, for anyone watching, the message was clear. Ranger was more than a dog. He was protector, guardian, and hero. In the silent, unspoken communication between girl and dog, bravery was defined not by aggression, but by love, loyalty, and the unwavering courage to stand between the innocent and harm. The serene rhythm of Oak Ridge Park fractured in an instant. The stranger, previously stalled by Ranger's immovable presence, now lunged with intent sharper than before. His hands, attempting to snatch Lily, trembled as desperation overtook pretense. The crowd's laughter had vanished, replaced by gasps and startled cries. A mother clutched her child. A man froze mid-step, and the distant hum of the city seemed to vanish into a tense silence. Ranger reacted with flawless precision, every motion a blend of instinct and training honed over years as a police canine. His powerful paws landed silently, positioning him between Lily and the man in a near-perfect triangle of protection. Eyes locked, ears forward, muscles coiled. He was the living embodiment of discipline and courage. The stranger attempted to reach for pepper spray in his pocket, but Ranger's calculated movement blocked the motion, his massive head subtly nudging the man's arm downward. In a blink, the dog's body shifted again, ensuring that the weapon could not be deployed without exposing the assailant to immediate counteraction. The choreography was silent yet dramatic, a tension-filled ballet of survival and strategy. Lily's small voice broke through the chaos. "Ranger!" she screamed, clutching his fur as if the act alone could convey all the trust and hope in her heart. Her eyes widened in terror, yet the very presence of her protector anchored her. She could feel the taut energy vibrating from him, the same energy that had once guided him through thunderous nights and perilous streets. The struggle escalated. The man, realizing his attempt to control the situation was failing, pushed forward aggressively, shoving Ranger aside. But Ranger's canine training was impeccable. He moved fluidly, slipping between threat and target with a precision that was almost cinematic. His jaws clamped down, not to maim but to immobilize, targeting the man's jacket and shoulder. The controlled pressure was enough to stop him, to limit his movement, yet it conveyed a discipline that emphasized protection over violence. Parents shouted warnings, some ran toward the scene, others grabbed their phones, dialing emergency numbers. The playground erupted in controlled chaos, the sound of children crying, birds fluttering, and distant traffic blending into a tense symphony. And through it all, Ranger maintained his position, shifting slightly as needed, eyes never leaving the threat. The stranger, panicked and desperate, twisted violently, trying to free himself. Ranger adjusted instantly, leveraging his weight and muscle to counterbalance, his movements smooth, efficient, and deliberate. It was a dance of life and danger, the kind only a dog of exceptional training could execute. The man's aggression was matched with a calm, instinctive response, a testament to the countless hours Ranger had spent learning to assess threats, control them, and protect without inflicting unnecessary harm. Lily pressed herself against Ranger, her small hands clinging to his fur as though drawing courage from his very being. She felt his strength and discipline ripple through her, a silent promise that she would not be harmed, that the darkness in human form before them could not break the bond that tethered them together. Her heart raced, yet her fear was tempered by awe, a pure childlike admiration for the dog, whose bravery had become legend in her eyes. Rebecca, running from a few steps behind, screamed her daughter's name, her voice raw with panic and disbelief. "Lily, don't let go of him," she shouted, and Lily's grip tightened instinctively. Ranger responded instantly, leaning slightly toward her, ensuring that no physical barrier could separate them in this crucial moment. Every muscle in his body was attuned to both threat and loved ones, calculating angles, predicting movements, and ensuring control. The stranger's eyes darted frantically, scanning the crowd for allies or escape routes. None existed. Ranger's presence created an invisible wall, a perimeter of unwavering loyalty and strength. The man's next aggressive move, a desperate lunge, was met by a sudden, calculated press of Ranger's body, forcing him backward, limiting leverage and momentum. The dog's teeth barely touched, his restraint absolute, but the force undeniable. The assailant was pinned, trapped not by fury, but by strategy, by instinct, and by a courage that transcended fear. Witnesses watched in a mixture of horror and admiration. Parents whispered among themselves, some crying quietly, some frozen in disbelief at the scene unfolding. "That dog. He's incredible," one woman murmured, tears brimming. "Look at him. He's protecting that little girl like a hero." Lily's small voice again broke through the tension. "Good job, Ranger," she cried, clinging tighter, her fear now interlaced with pride and relief. In that moment, the raw emotional weight of the scene struck the hearts of everyone present. Here was innocence, threatened by darkness, and here was loyalty and bravery, personified in a dog who had once faced criminals and bullets, and now faced the subtler evils that sometimes hide behind smiles and casual gestures. The confrontation reached its peak as the man slumped slightly under Ranger's controlled restraint, realizing he could not overcome this living guardian. His movement slowed, desperation giving way to fear, as police sirens began wailing in the distance, drawn by the chaos that had erupted. Ranger remained steadfast, never letting up until the authorities arrived. His body a perfect balance of power, precision, and unwavering commitment. Finally, the man was taken into custody, unable to resist without causing himself more harm. Ranger's stance softened slightly, muscles relaxing, though his eyes remained vigilant, scanning for any residual threat. Lily buried her face against him, tears mingling with laughter, her small body shaking with relief. "You saved me, Ranger," she whispered, her voice muffled against his fur. Rebecca scooped Lily into her arms, holding her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much," she murmured to the dog, running her fingers through his coat. Ranger, chest heaving gently, allowed a subtle exhale, his duty fulfilled, yet his loyalty eternal. The playground, though still buzzing with adrenaline and concern, slowly returned to its rhythm. Children cautiously resumed play, parents gathered their loved ones, and the sun continued to cast its warm light. Yet the emotional imprint of Ranger's heroism lingered, a silent lesson in courage, discipline, and the extraordinary bond between a child and a protector. And for Lily, in that moment of triumph and terror intertwined, she learned the depth of trust, love, and the extraordinary courage that a loyal friend could offer, a lesson that would resonate through her heart for years to come. The moment the stranger realized that restraint alone would not suffice, he bolted, adrenaline propelling him through the park with a desperation that betrayed his cunning. Children scattered in startled cries, parents grabbed their little ones, and the air seemed to thrum with tension. Amidst the chaos, Ranger's focus sharpened like a finely tuned instrument. His body coiled, muscles tensed, and in one fluid motion, he was off, tracking the fleeing threat with unwavering precision. The world seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously as Ranger weaved through the park's obstacles. Park benches became hurdles, children's laughter turned into startled gasps, and the scent of sun-warmed grass mixed with the tang of fear. Ranger's paws struck the earth with rhythmic certainty, each step a calculated measure of speed and control. He was no longer merely a pet or companion. He was a guardian unleashed, his years of police training manifesting in every leap and pivot. The suspect darted between parked cars, eyes darting frantically for escape routes. Ranger followed without hesitation, his senses a symphony of calculation. Tail low, ears forward, eyes locked, he read the man's intentions like an open book. The crowd watched in awe, some frozen in disbelief, others whispering prayers as the chase unfolded like a cinematic spectacle. Children clutched parents' hands, their small faces reflecting fear and wonder, while Rebecca shouted Lily's name, her voice trembling with both terror and relief. As the man twisted sharply around a corner, Ranger mirrored every movement, anticipating each erratic turn. The world seemed to blur around them, streaks of sunlight bouncing off shiny surfaces, the rapid motion of fleeing feet, and the distant sirens growing louder. But Ranger's focus never wavered. Every fiber of his being was attuned to one singular goal, to ensure that Lily and everyone she loved remained safe. The suspect attempted to vault over a low fence, a last-ditch effort to escape. Ranger calculated the timing, leapt with precise force, and landed squarely in front of the man, cutting off the only apparent exit. The collision was seamless, a combination of momentum and strength that left the man stumbling, off balance, and vulnerable. Ranger's weight pressed subtly, non-lethally, but with undeniable authority, pinning him effectively against the fence. Rebecca's heart pounded in her chest. "Ranger, oh my God!" she cried, tears streaming down her face as she clutched Lily. Lily, though trembling, managed a small, awed whisper. He caught him." Her voice quivered, a mixture of fear released and pride blossoming. Bystanders gathered cautiously, murmurs spreading through the crowd. "Look at him, he's incredible," someone exclaimed. Phones were raised, capturing footage that would later circulate as a testament to the extraordinary bond between human and dog. Yet Ranger remained calm, his fierce energy tempered by discipline, never losing sight of his dual purpose: protector and companion. The suspect struggled, attempting to push past Ranger, but the dog's positioning was impeccable. Training from years in law enforcement had taught him control, the ability to immobilize without unnecessary harm. His jaws clamped briefly on the man's jacket, not biting but asserting authority, and he shifted his weight strategically to prevent any escape. Every action was precise, calculated, a demonstration of instinct honed into mastery. Meanwhile, Lily and Rebecca's emotions swelled in tandem: relief that danger had been halted, awe at the seamless display of bravery, and gratitude that this loyal guardian had once again safeguarded them from harm. For Lily, the scene solidified a truth she had already intuited in the park. Ranger's presence was a living shield, a promise of unwavering devotion. The man's struggles slowed as he realized resistance was futile. Sirens now blared with urgency, police officers rounding the corner, weapons drawn but confident that the immediate threat was neutralized. Ranger, sensing the shift, eased his tension slightly, muscles relaxing but eyes never leaving the man. He moved fluidly, stepping back to allow officers to secure the suspect without losing control of the situation. Rebecca approached, tears blurring her vision. She knelt beside Ranger, running her hands along his sleek fur, feeling the tremor of exertion beneath his coat. You saved her," she whispered, voice cracking with emotion. Lily pressed against Ranger's side, wrapping her small arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. "Thank you, Ranger," she murmured, her voice muffled but full of heartfelt gratitude. The duality of the moment struck every observer. The same dog who had just displayed lethal precision in pursuit was now gentle, loving, and protective toward his family. Bystanders applauded softly, some unable to contain their tears. The emotional weight of the chase and takedown settled into the collective consciousness of those present. This was not mere heroism. It was the living embodiment of loyalty, training, and a bond forged through love and experience. Ranger's actions had bridged the realms of instinct and morality, bravery and tenderness, leaving everyone who witnessed it profoundly moved. As the officers led the suspect away, Ranger returned to Lily's side, his gait easing into the familiar rhythm of family companionship. He nudged her gently, encouraging her to rise, and she laughed through her tears, brushing stray strands of hair from her face. The tension that had gripped the park for minutes stretched into an eternal imprint of relief and wonder. Rebecca enveloped both Lily and Ranger in an embrace, feeling the tangible warmth of safety restored. "I don't know what we would have done without you," she whispered. Ranger rested his massive head against her shoulder, a silent acknowledgement that his duty was never a burden, only a calling. Lily looked up at him, eyes shining with admiration. "You're my hero," she said simply. And in that pure, unguarded moment, the world seemed to pause. Ranger's chest heaved slightly as he exhaled, his fierce protective energy seamlessly giving way to gentle, loving companionship. The crowd, now dispersed yet hushed, carried with them the resonance of a story unfolding in real time, a tale of courage, trust, and the extraordinary bond between a child and her dog. In the aftermath, Oak Ridge Park began to return to its rhythm. Children's laughter tentatively resumed. Birds chirped nervously, and the sunlight filtered through the trees in warm, forgiving rays. Yet the imprint of Ranger's heroism lingered, etched in hearts and memories. He had not only stopped a threat, but had transformed fear into awe, terror into trust, and danger into a testament of unwavering loyalty. For Lily, this day would remain etched in her memory forever, the day Ranger's courage and precision had met his heart and love, and the two together had made her world safe once again. The morning sun cast a soft, golden glow over Oak Ridge Park, a serene contrast to the chaos of the previous day. Lily and Rebecca lingered near the park's entrance, Ranger sitting patiently at their feet, his powerful frame relaxed yet vigilant. The events of the day had left a palpable residue of adrenaline and relief, but the real closure was yet to come. From a distance, a figure approached, uniform crisp, posture confident, yet carrying the weight of familiarity. Officer Jason Rivera. Rivera's eyes widened slightly as he saw Ranger, the dog that had once been his partner through countless operations, now transformed into a guardian of family rather than a battleground. The sight of Ranger, healthy, alert, and composed, tugged at something deep within him, a mixture of pride, nostalgia, and an unspoken relief that the dog had transitioned successfully from the high-stakes dangers of law enforcement to the delicate, everyday responsibility of family protection. "Ranger!" Rivera's voice caught midway, cracking with emotion as he knelt to meet the dog's gaze. Ranger's ears flicked, tail wagging in a measured, controlled greeting, a perfect blend of respect and recognition. The bond between them was instantaneous, an unbroken thread stretching from the chaotic streets of his police days to this quiet, sunlit moment in the park. Rebecca stepped forward, her eyes glistening with tears. "Officer Rivera, I can't even begin to thank you for everything," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Ranger, he saved Lily today. I don't know how we would have—" Rivera raised a hand, cutting her off gently but firmly. "You don't need to thank me," he said, though his eyes betrayed the gravity of the situation. "Ranger? He's always been a hero. I just trained him. He did the rest himself." Lily, still clutching Ranger's massive paw, looked up at Rivera with wide, awed eyes. He stopped the man," she whispered, pride and amazement mingling in her voice. "He knew it was dangerous. He protected me." Rivera's gaze softened as he crouched to meet her eye level. "You're lucky, Lily. Not every kid has a dog like Ranger watching over them. You can be proud, but remember, he's brave because he cares, and that's what makes a true hero." The air between them was heavy with unspoken emotions. Rivera reached into his coat pocket and produced a small evidence bag, its contents revealing the calculated intentions of the suspect. A set of restraints, a few concealed weapons, and a pepper spray canister. "We found these on the man," Rivera said quietly, almost reverently. "Everything Ranger sensed. It was real. His instincts saved you both." Rebecca's hands shook as she accepted the evidence bag, reading the labels and absorbing the weight of what had been narrowly avoided. She turned to Ranger, pressing her forehead against his broad skull. "You were right. Every time, weren't you?" she murmured. Ranger's tail thumped softly against the ground in response, a gentle affirmation of loyalty and understanding. Rivera reached out, running his hand along Ranger's flank, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the fur, now tempered by love and care rather than the constant tension of police work. "I trained him to follow commands, to act under pressure," Rivera said, voice catching. "But this was all him, no hesitation, no fear. He made the right calls because he chose to protect. That's a bond that can't be taught." Lily nestled closer to Ranger, whispering, "I love you, Ranger." Her small voice carried the weight of every emotion she had felt that day: fear, relief, awe, and a burgeoning pride. Ranger leaned into her embrace, head resting gently on her shoulder, eyes soft but watchful. Rivera's chest tightened as he watched, reminded of all the quiet heroism he had witnessed with this dog, now displayed in a more intimate personal arena. Seeing him like this, Rivera continued, voice low and raw, reminds me of why we do what we do. Not just for arrests, not just for the paperwork, but for moments like this, moments when courage and loyalty intersect and lives are saved because someone, or in this case something, chose to act. Rebecca's eyes brimmed with tears. I've read about police dogs, heard stories, but Ranger, he's different. He's not just trained, he's part of our family. And today, he proved that love can be just as powerful as training. Rivera nodded solemnly, glancing between Lily and Ranger. He's always been special. Even when he was on the force, he had a sense of awareness, of responsibility beyond his orders. And now I see it hasn't faded. He's just found a new way to express it, with you too. Lily smiled faintly, brushing dirt from Ranger's paw. Can you believe he caught him all by himself? She asked, awe lingering in her voice. Like in the stories you told me about the police days. Rivera chuckled softly, though his eyes glistened. Every bit true. Rangers pickled lives I can't even count. But today he reminded me that the bond between a dog and their person is something extraordinary. And seeing him protect you, it's a feeling I can't put into words. The crowd that had gathered earlier had mostly dispersed, leaving a quiet reverence in the park. Yet the echoes of heroism remained, woven into the fabric of the morning. Ranger, sensing the shift from tension to calm, eased fully into his role as family companion, but the gleam of vigilance never left his eyes. Rivera stood, brushing off his uniform, his gaze lingering on Ranger one last time. I'll make sure this story gets recorded, he said. The police department, they need to know that training and love combined can do what force alone cannot. Ranger's a testament to that. Rebecca nodded, gratitude spilling from her every gesture. Thank you, Officer Rivera, for everything, for training him, for guiding him, and for believing in what he could do. Rivera smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and ocean crossing his face. No, thank you, Rebecca, for giving him a home, for letting him be more than a hero on the streets. You two, you make him whole. Lily hugged Ranger tightly once more, her small arms barely wrapping around his broad chest. We'll always take care of you, she whispered, voice muffled against his fur. Ranger leaned into the embrace, steady and calm, understanding completely. The sun climbed higher, scattering warm light across the park. Birds chirped, leaves rustled in a gentle breeze, and for the first time in hours, or maybe days, there was a deep, unbroken sense of peace. The reunion with Officer Rivera was more than a meeting of past and present. It was a testament to trust, loyalty, and the unparalleled bond between humans and animals. As Rivera walked away, a silent salute exchanged between man and dog. Lily looked up at Ranger and whispered, "You're my hero, always." Ranger's tail thumped once, a soft, measured affirmation, and the world seemed to hold its breath in quiet reverence for the heroism, love, and unspoken understanding shared in that moment. The morning sun poured through the windows of the Oak Ridge Community Center, casting a warm, golden light over the polished floors and rows of chairs, filled with local families, police officers, and curious onlookers. A hush fell over the crowd as Officer Jason Rivera stepped to the podium, Ranger sitting loyally at his side. Today was not just a ceremony. It was a recognition of a life spent in service, a hero whose courage transcended the line between duty and love. Today we honor a remarkable canine officer, Rivera began, voice steady but thick with emotion. Ranger's actions saved a young life yesterday, and in doing so reminded all of us of the extraordinary bond between humans and the animals who protect us. His gaze softened as he looked down at Ranger, who tilted his head ever so slightly. tail thumping gently in acknowledgement. The crowd murmured appreciatively, parents exchanging glances, some holding the hands of their children who stared wide-eyed at the magnificent dog before them. Children who had only ever seen dogs as playful companions now witnessed a living testament to bravery, loyalty, and instinct. Ranger's gaze swept over the audience with calm awareness, every muscle relaxed yet radiating quiet power. A stark reminder that courage does not always roar. Sometimes it waits, patient and watchful, until action is needed. Photos of the incident flashed on the projector behind Rivera. Lily clutching Ranger, the suspect restrained, evidence displayed. The room was silent, the images leaving the audience holding their breath. Whispers of admiration spread. Look at him. He's incredible, a real hero. Social media feeds were already alight with the story, videos capturing Ranger's precise movements and calm authority, circulating widely, drawing thousands of views, shares, and comments of awe. Ranger has shown us what it means to act selflessly, Rivera continued, yet even in retirement he embodies the spirit of protection, instinct, and courage. Yesterday it wasn't just training, it was love, loyalty, and instinct converging in the most extraordinary way. At the back of the room, Lily's on a small bench, her small hand stroking Ranger's broad head. "You're amazing, Ranger," she whispered, eyes shining with awe. "You saved me. You always keep me safe." Ranger leaned gently into her touch, eyes softening, as if to say, "Always." In that quiet exchange, the essence of their bond, the unspoken communication and unwavering trust, was laid bare. Rebecca stood behind Lily, tears streaming silently down her face, grateful for the serenity Ranger had brought into their lives. She remembered the stormy nights, the early days of adaptation, the whispered comforts during fear-filled moments, and now the community's applause for the very dog who had turned everyday vigilance into heroic action. It was as if all the challenges, all the nights of worry and doubt had culminated in this moment of acknowledgement and love. As Rivera handed Ranger a ceremonial medal, the crowd erupted into heartfelt applause. Ranger remained composed, accepting the honor with dignity, his training evident in the stillness of his posture. He had been a soldier, a guardian, a loyal partner, and now a hero recognized by both the law and the community. The ceremony concluded with Rivera kneeling beside Ranger, wrapping an arm around his massive shoulders. "You've left a legacy, buddy, not just for me, not just for Lily, but for everyone who witnesses what courage and loyalty look like in their purest form." Ranger nuzzled Rivera's hand, an unspoken acknowledgement of the years they had shared, the dangers faced and the silent victories that never made headlines. Outside, the park buzzed with families and neighbors sharing the news. Children reenacted Ranger's heroics in their games. Parents recounted the story to friends, and local reporters captured interviews with Rebecca and Lily. The online community exploded with admiration, messages pouring in from across the country. Viewers praised Ranger's calm precision, his unwavering vigilance, and his unshakable bond with Lily. "A true hero," one comment read, "a dog who proves that love can be as powerful as courage." That evening, back at home, Lily curled up on the sofa, Ranger stretched protectively at her side. She rested her cheek against his warm, steady flank, eyes half closed in comfort. The events of the day had been overwhelming, but in the quiet of their living room, the reality of her safety, her protection, and her hero's steadfast presence settled over her like a gentle blanket. Ranger's eyes scanned the room briefly, alert to any possible disturbance, then relaxed, knowing that the danger had passed. His muzzle nuzzled Lily's hair, his tail brushing against her shoulder in a soothing rhythm. In those small, quiet moments, the audience could almost feel the heartbeat of their bond, the intertwining of human trust and animal loyalty that had saved a life and inspired a community. Rebecca entered the room holding a steaming mug of cocoa. She looked down at Lily and Ranger and smiled through her tears. "You two, you've shown everyone the meaning of bravery," she said softly. "Not just fighting danger, but protecting love, protecting life, protecting each other. You've created a legacy that will last forever." Lily whispered, "I'll never forget, Ranger. You're my hero, always." Ranger's head lifted, eyes locking onto hers, a silent promise passing between them. The heroism of yesterday, the courage of his police days, and the steadfast love of today converged in this single, timeless moment. And in the quiet glow of their living room, the story of Ranger, police dog, retired guardian, unwavering protector, cemented itself not only in hearts, but in history. A life devoted to loyalty, courage, and love left its mark, reminding everyone who learned of it that true heroism often walks on four legs, with a heart bigger than the challenges it faces. The screen of a nearby tablet glowed softly, showing the news coverage once more. Ranger, retired K9, saves child at Oak Ridge Park. Social media comments flooded in. Brave, loyal, incredible, hero, inspiration. Lily smiled, resting her small hand atop Ranger's head, feeling the steady, warm heartbeat beneath her palm. She was safe, loved, and understood because of him, and Ranger, ever vigilant, ever loyal, remained by her side.